Okay, so again, I'm Dan, the training guy over here at Loxo, and we're going to be doing a focus on business development best practices in Loxo. There are several different tools in the Loxo platform that work together very nicely to help you sort of get your head around all of the business development activities that your team is working and sort of get your head around the process or the progress that's being made on the business development front as a whole. So 6 topics we're going to look at in this presentation. First, I'm going to show you how to make a business development tracking pipeline in the Deals tab. That's probably the most powerful business development tool that we've got in the Loxo Talent Intelligence platform. And I'll show you how intuitive it is to put together a pipeline and use that to track all of your prospect companies as they work their way through your sales conversion process. Then we'll talk about some of the nitty-gritty details in Loxo that'll help you manage business development activity. Namely, second, we'll look at managing contacts over at prospect companies in Loxo, how you can build a profile in the People tab for each of those contacts and sort of have all of the information for that person gathered in one place so you can easily access it and easily manage that contact going forward. Then we'll talk about the process of engaging and communicating with those contacts. Namely, I'm going to be showing you bulk emailing and bulk text messaging and also Loxo outreach campaigns, which are terrific tools to engage those contacts over at prospect companies and get them interested in becoming paid clients of yours. Then we'll talk about how to keep your contacts straight and segmented from all of your candidates and all the other people in your Loxo system. And that namely happens with the lists feature, which allows lists are basically folders, if we be straight about it. So you can gather up business development contacts by, let's say, industry and drop them into a folder, a list. And so you've got them in, in one place, and you can easily highlight everybody in that list and then drop them into, let's say, an outreach campaign. Then we'll talk about the process of managing business development phone calls in Loxo, and that happens in the call queue. And then finally, last, we'll take a look at the Tasks tab and remind you about how you can manage all of your business development related tasks that you create in Loxo very easily in our system. And so after this, you should have a pretty good sense of, all of the various tools in Loxo that are going to help you really manage the front end of your business. All right, let's jump into the Loxo user interface. And we are going to take a look first at the Deals tab, which is where you can put together a business development tracking pipeline. So when you log into your Loxo account, as I'm sure you guys remember, on the left side, there are a series of tabs on the navigation bar that let you move around to the main parts of our platform, like the Jobs tab, the People tab, the Tasks tab, we'll be visiting there later, the Companies tab, the Deals tab, and the three-dot button, the More button, is where you can jump into Loxo outreach campaigns, Loxo Source, our global database, and Loxo Reporting. But I want to remind you guys that the most important button in our platform, literally, is this question mark button here. This is how you can chat us up at support if you ever have questions or problems, or you need some best practice advice, or you need my training videos, or you just want to give us some feedback, or if you have a feature request you want to submit, anything like that, reach out to our support team. We usually have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people logged on at a time taking chats that are coming in. So you'll get an answer quickly whenever you need some help. All right, so let's talk first about the all-important business development tracking pipeline functionality in Loxo. And that's found under the People's tab. No, let's start that sentence over. That's found under the Deals tab, actually, on the left side here. So when I click on Deals, it opens up a view of a pipeline. And this is a typical sales team pipeline or recruitment team pipeline, if you will, where you're managing or viewing or getting your head around all of the existing job contracts that you're currently working as a recruiting team, trying to place candidates in all of these open jobs, right? But you can very easily create a pipeline that is dedicated to the management of your business development prospect companies that you are wooing and hoping to become become paid clients of yours. Now, the first key concept about deals is you can create as many pipelines for your account as you wish. So you definitely want to create one pipeline that's dedicated to sales activity, or I like to call it recruitment activity, where, as you as a recruitment manager or a sales manager will be able to see in one place all of the job contracts that are currently open that you are working as a team. Right. And you can see here's a typical sales team pipeline: cold lead, qualified opportunity, won the deal, placed the candidate, and lost. Right? Pretty basic. And the idea, of course, is that you drag and drop these open job contracts from one stage to another until hopefully you get to that happy day where you place the candidate in that front end developer job at Salesforce and you get that 20,000 pound signing fee, this kind of thing, right? So now, to create multiple pipelines, you're going to use the gray button up here where you can toggle between the pipelines that you built for your account. So we're looking at the sales team pipeline here, but if I click on that gray button, I can see all of the other ones that I've built in this demo account, this training account that we're using today. So a lot of people that use Loxo will create one basic recruitment pipeline and then have individual pipelines for each of their recruiters so that they can see the job contracts that they alone are working, so they can get their head around all of the activity that they are juggling at one point, right? But you can see here that I've created a cursory business development tracking pipeline here, and I can go to that pipeline just by clicking on it. So here's a typical business development tracking pipeline. It's very sort of primitive because I was just developing this one day for, a team that wanted to get a business development tracking training. And so I put together this pipeline just so they could visualize it. And so here are some typical steps in a business development sort of conversion process, right? First of all, point of contact identified, i.e., we figured out who the person is at Blue Bay Technology that we need to talk to about getting them to become a paid client of our recruitment organization. Next, contact information gathered for that point of contact. Next, initial email sent to that point of contact, introducing ourselves and just, basically making an elevator pitch. Next, phone call follow-up. Right? If they respond to the email, they're at all interested, we follow up with a phone call and get the person on the phone and try and talk to them. After that, then if they're still interested, we send over a contract proposal. And if they're really interested, we get them to sign the contract and become a paid client, right? So instead of open job contracts in this pipeline, you have prospect companies in this pipeline like Blue Bay Technology, Pepsi, Tesla, FPA, Gulfstream, Coca-Cola, and so on. So these are all big heavy hitter companies that we're trying to get them to become paid client of ours so we can really, work some job contracts for these organizations and make bank, as the kids say, right? All right, so now the key concept is you can create as many pipelines for your account as you want. And you use this gray button and go to the very bottom, and you will find the button to create a pipeline, create new pipeline. Okay, so click there. And this is where you put together the infrastructure, the pipeline that you're building. In this case, for your example, it's going to be the business development tracking pipeline. So where it says pipeline name, just start typing in this box. I know it looks kind of funky, but it'll just keep scrolling. Business development tracking pipeline, something like that. So you can identify it in the list of pipelines. Then give names to each of the stages of the pipeline. You can see the generic sort of starter stages are sourced, in progress, and complete. It's pretty generic, right? But you can change the name here to match your verbiage, right? Match your lingo, and use the add button to add as many stages into this pipeline that you think you guys want to have. So really, you might want to sketch it out on a piece of paper old school way, like how many stages, what exactly are we calling those stages, and really be granular, right? Every single little step in your sales conversion process for business development prospect companies, you want to have that in this pipeline and call those stages whatever you wish. Now, win probability percentage, you can ignore this. This is primarily for the sales team or recruitment team pipeline as a whole. And the idea here is that you enter in a win probability percentage for each of the stages in the pipeline for that sales team pipeline. And this is your confidence in percentage form in winning a deal by the expected close date. And this is used to project your future revenue in that sales team pipeline. It's kind of confusing, right? But basically the idea is that at the first stage of the sales team pipeline, when you drop a job contract into that pipeline, the chance that you're going to place the candidate is pretty low at that point, right? It's maybe only like 10%, right? Because you're at the very beginning of the process. But as it works through the process, it bumps up maybe to 25% at the second stage. And when you finally get to the booked or completed or, place the candidate, whatever you're calling that stage, then it's 100%. You place the candidate, you won the deal, that kind of thing. Lost, that stage would be 0%, right? You are not going to win that because you know that you did not win that. You did not place the candidate in time or whatever. So the idea here is that you don't have to worry about this for the business development tracking pipeline, but when you put together that sales team or recruitment team pipeline, that's where you want to think carefully about at each stage, what is the probability we're going to place the candidate if it's at stage 2 or stage 3, right? Just sort of make an educated guess and enter that in there. Now down here at the bottom, there's this thing called rotting age. Now I know that sounds like a death metal band, but it's not. It's actually, you're entering in here the amount of time that you expect a task will take to be completed with regard to a deal, right? So the idea here is that when you create a deal, you might attach a task to it, which I'm going to show you how to do in a second. And if that task is not done, in this case, in 7 days, it'll turn red on the little deal card. So they'll give you a heads up that, hey, it's reached the rotting age, i.e., it's about time you do this task. Otherwise, it's getting really overtime. I think that's the idea there. So it's pretty, I think it's really comical that we picked that name. In fact, I tell them that we should have t-shirts that say Loxo rotting age. Anyway, you get the idea. Hit create, and that's going to create the pipeline. In this case, the business development tracking pipeline, right? And at that point, it'll show up in this drop-down list of pipelines, right? You'll be able to toggle between the sales team pipeline that you're using for your whole team and then hop into the business development tracking pipeline. You've got the pipeline. Now, to create the deal itself, or in this case, the prospect company card itself, like for Pepsi or Tesla or whatever, you're going to use the Add New Deal button up here at the upper right. Now, click on that, and it gives you a little box where you're going to enter in the information that's going to create this little profile page or card for the prospect company. It's going to drop into your business development tracking pipeline. So the deal name here, you want to think of this as the company name, the prospect company name. So if I'm working with Acme Business Systems, I would type in the name of the prospect company, Acme Business Systems. Amount is the amount of money you're going to get if they sign that contract to become a paid client of yours. Now, sometimes you don't get anything right off the bat. You're working on contingency, in which case you'd leave it at 0. But if there's a signing fee for them to become a paid client of yours, and it's like 20,000 pounds or whatever, you'd enter that in here. Okay, then the organization is the same as the deal name or the prospect company name. It is the company name. So a key concept here is that before you create the deal pipeline for the business development tracking pipeline, you want to make sure, or what I'm trying to say here is before you create the card for the prospect company, you want to go into the companies tab and create a profile for that company so that when you type in the company name here, Acme Business Systems or whatever, it's going to match against the list of all the companies that are in your companies tab so that we can link it to the correct company, right? So let's pretend we're talking about Transportant. I've never heard of this company, but let's say that's the client or the prospect company. So I'd enter in Transportant up here and then match it against the profile, the company profile that we've got in the companies tab for that company. Point of contact would be whoever the hiring manager is over at this company that you're working with. So in this case, there's only one person on this company profile, James Stoffer. So he's got to be the dude that we're talking to at Transportant about getting them to become paid clients of ours. Then click on Show Advanced Settings, and there's some other stuff you can do here, well, that you need to do here. First of all, tell us what pipeline you want to drop this prospect company into. It's always going to be the business development tracking pipeline. So if you have more than one, make sure you pick the correct pipeline, in this case, business development tracking pipeline. Indicate who on your team primarily is working this deal. Who is working with James at Transportant to get them to become a paid client, right? Me, I am. And is there an expected close date? Yeah, by the end of this month, 1/31/23. All right. And then indicate what stage of that pipeline, the business development tracking pipeline, do you want to drop this deal into, this prospect company, in this case, into. It's almost always going to be the first stage, but sometimes you add it, it's already in progress. So maybe you're already at the point where you already sent the email and now you're remembering to put it in the deal pipeline, right? So you can do it that way and add it into whatever stage of the pipeline you want this prospect company to drop into. Then hit the Create Deal button at the lower right-hand corner, and that will create the profile page or the card, as we call it, for that prospect company. and it will drop it into the business development pipeline at the appropriate stage that you've indicated, and you're on your way to organizational bliss. Now, the other key concept is that when you add a prospect company into this business development tracking pipeline, you can click on the company name to open up the profile page or the card. It's kind of like a person's profile page, except it's for the prospect company. So in this case, Pepsi, we're going to work on contingency if they sign. They're not going to give us any money when they sign with us. To the right, you'll see who on your team primarily is trying to get Pepsi over the line to sign that contract. You'll indicate, or you'll see whether it's been lost, whether it's been won, or whether it's still in progress. And then below that, you see the actual stages of the pipeline. You can see where exactly it is. We're right at the point where we've gathered contact info and we're about to send that initial contact email out to the person, right? You have an activity stream over here on the left, so you can see exactly what's been going on with regard to this deal. And on the right side, it really starts to look like a person's profile page, in that you can send an email, make an outbound phone call, send a text message, provided you've attached a contact person here. And then down below, you can do just that. You'll see an add contact button to add someone who is the main point of contact over at the prospect company. In this case, it's someone named Sanath Nagaraj. And so I've added this person as the main contact, and I can click on that person's name to go right to their profile page and pick up the telephone or whatever, etc. You can also use the add other contacts button and add some additional people from Pepsi that maybe you're working with to woo them and talk to them about becoming a paid client. You can add those other people here. You can also add documents here. So all the sales collateral that you're sending over to Pepsi and all the contract proposals and your terms and conditions and all that kind of jazz that you're sending over to them in this process, you can attach all those documents here so they're all stored in one central location. You'll be able to document whatever information about this deal or this prospect company that you wish. And again, you can log notes very easily here in the activity stream, like a general note, an email note, a meeting note, a call note. You can schedule meetings from here. You can create tasks from here. So if there are tasks that are specific to this business development prospect company that you want to make sure you don't forget to do, you can create that task right here, and it drops it into your task pipeline, and it assigns that rotting age to that task on this deal card, this prospect company card. I mentioned before, for this guy, Sanath, we only have an email address on file for this gentleman. But if we had a cell phone number, then this would be active and you'd be able to make an outbound phone call or send a text message to the dude right from here as well. At this point, we can only just send an email to the guy because we don't have any contact info beyond that for this gentleman. Now, the last thing about this card that I'll say that's kind of cool is at the upper right, when you finally win the deal and they sign the contract, you click on one, that's when you get the virtual confetti drop. We actually get love letters that support about that. People like that little positive reinforcement. All right, click out of the deal card. It takes you right back to the pipeline and you're on your way. One other thing, when you're looking at the deal card here in the sort of front view, you can see who on your team is the primary owner of the deal, right? And you can also use this blue add button to create a task related to this deal right from here as well. Okay, so add new task. Just give a name to your task, assign it to yourself or whoever on your team's going to do this task. Type in the note. Don't forget to call Bob at Pepsi on Tuesday to talk about the contract terms. He said he's not going to be in on Monday, but to call him first thing Tuesday, something like that. Hit save. It saves that task into your pipeline. So that is the business development tracking pipeline. I think you're going to find this tool is extremely simple to use. It's just an idea of creating the pipeline and then creating the prospect company cards and dropping them in and then dragging and dropping them and sort of keeping your eye on these deals and making sure that they all move in one direction to sign contract. That's a happy day, right? Okay, so that's the first major business development tool in Loxo that I really want you guys to focus on, and let me or support know if you need any help along the way building this business development tracking pipeline. All right, let's talk next about managing contacts over at a business development target company. So let's go back to Pepsi and let's take that guy Sanath. If I click here, it's going to take me to his profile page in the database of people in the people tab. So let's go there. So here is Sanath, or it's going to be him in a second. Here he is, Sanath in New Jersey. He works at Pepsi, or he's supposed to. At any rate, this is probably just a demo account thing where we're just pulling him in at random for that card. But the idea here is let's pretend he is the contact over at Pepsi, right? So we've got this profile page. Whenever you click on someone's name in Loxo, it opens up their profile page, which I'm sure you remember. And this is where you have all the tools at your fingertips to manage this contact over at, in this case, Microsoft, right? We're trying to get Microsoft across the line to become a paid client of ours. And we're talking to this person over at Microsoft who is our main contact there about that. So remember, you can send an email, you can make an outbound phone call, or you can send a text message right from here as well. You can use this little magnifying glass button up here to look for additional contact info. It looks like this is probably all we're going to find, but let's click there and see. I usually give it, yeah, that's it. That's all we can find for this guy is 2 email addresses. But that magnifying glass button is Loxo Connect, which is our AI bots, and they will be able to find email addresses and cell phone numbers for you. So you'll be able to actually reach out and connect with that contact person over at the prospect company. You can also add notes onto their profile page under the activity stream if you need to. You can also add phone numbers and email addresses over here on the right. You can document whatever information about this contact person that you need to. And you can also use the add to button here under their name to drop them into an outreach campaign, which you might want to do to trigger a campaign to talk to them about your services at your organization and why you would be an excellent resource for them to have in their back pocket kind of thing. Or you could simply put them into a list, like maybe a list of business development contacts that you want to have in a folder so that you can drop them into an outreach campaign sometime down the road later. Or you could add them to you could add this gentleman to your call queue, your call list, so that you don't forget to call this guy tomorrow kind of thing, right? So all of the basic sort of CRM functionality you want here in terms of storing data, having easy access to that data, having the communication tools at your fingertips, and having all the action items at your fingertips here is going to make it really easy for you to work with those contacts over at prospect companies and really manage your relationship with these people by documenting everything in the activities stream and really using all of the various bells and whistles that are found in Loxo to, work with that person going forward. All right, let's talk now more specifically about how to engage those folks, those contacts over at prospect companies using bulk emailing and bulk text messaging in conjunction with outreach campaigns. These are both super easy tools to use, and I have in-depth trainings on both of these things in the Loxo 102 training. So if you haven't watched that training, do try to watch that video or sit in with me. All right, so let's talk about bulk emailing first and bulk texting. So let's say that Tina here is a contact over at a prospect company in Estonia that I'm really hot on getting to become a paid client because they are absolutely perfect for our target audience, right? So I highlight her by putting a check mark next to her name. And if I highlight more than one person, I necessarily can send a bulk email or a bulk text message. So let's pick 2 or 3 others. Let's take Laura here. And let's take Veko, and we'll take one other. These are all folks in Estonia. Janus. All right, so these 4 people in Estonia are really the 4 sort of business development contact people in Estonia that I think are a good bet in terms of their companies look like excellent target companies for us to talk to about having these folks become paid clients of ours. So I've highlighted those 4 people by putting check marks next to their names, and now I click on bulk email up here at the top, and it opens up a little email template. It's going to go to these 4 people. They do not know they're part of a bulk email, of course. They're all BCC'd from each other. But you can CC additional people on this call. You can BCC additional people. You can add attachments. You could drop in email template content if you've built some that makes sense. And then at the from line, a very key concept here is always make sure you use the from dropdown to choose the via Loxo option so that these bulk emails go out through our servers. So you don't get flagged as being a spammer for sending out the same email to a group of people. That's usually a red flag, right? If it goes out through our servers, these are going out individually. You won't be flagged as a spammer. Our servers are insulated. They know we don't spam. Now, the via Loxo part is invisible to these recipients. So you don't have to worry about them being confused and be like, they're not going to know what Loxo is, Dan, this kind of thing. They're not going to see Loxo. It's going to look like it's coming from you. It is coming from you. It's just going out through our servers. Now, build a subject line that's actually going to get them to open up this email. So don't be vague. Don't just say, I've got a great opportunity for you. That's not going to work. Say the name of the company and the job title if you can. Apple C++ Tokyo job. Read below. Something like that will make them sit up straight and actually open up this email. Now down below, make sure you always remember to drop in a person first name merge tag under the person merge tags right there. So it personalizes it. It says, "Hey Tina, hey Laura, hey Vaco, hey Janice. I got a great job at Apple I want to talk to you about." Now, below that, you can also drop in links to forms, as you probably know. So if you've created some kind of a form that you want these people to fill out on your settings page, then you can drop in links to that form, like a candidate intake form, right? So maybe the email says, "Hey Tina, per our phone call just now, click on the link below to fill out our candidate information form." She clicks on that link, it's going to open up that form. When she fills out that form and saves it, it's going to save that completed form onto her profile in Loxo. And that's why that's so powerful. All right, down below, make sure. Yeah,
Dan,
go ahead.
sorry
Go
to
ahead.
interrupt.
No problem.
Can you drop in the make an appointment in my diary, like a hyperlink to a diary?
Not from here, but what you can do is when you create an appointment on someone's profile page and you create it on your calendar, in Loxo, it will copy over to your work calendar. So I know that's not a perfect fit for your question, but as you're creating meetings on your calendar, when you agree to a time with someone, you drop it on your calendar. If you've synced up your calendar with Loxo, it'll push that automatically
But
onto your work calendar.
okay, what I was thinking is because I want to use this as business development. So if I email a bunch of potential clients and introduce us and say, if you're interested in a follow-up call, follow this link to make an appointment.
Yeah, if you use Calendly or something like that, you could put a link in here to your Calendly and
Okay.
just say, click on this link to schedule an appointment on my calendar,
Okay.
and just literally put in the URL, and that will be a live link that they can click on. But what I thought you were asking is there like some kind of a way to drop in that link here through like a drop down similar to this, and there's not
Yeah,
yet.
yeah. Okay.
Probably
Okay.
eventually will. And they're going to add job merge tags here as well. So you can reference the company or the job name and all that. Right now, we just have person and form link merge tags. But
Okay.
in campaigns, for example, you can put in job link merge tags, which makes it really easy as well.
Okay.
Okay, all right. So a couple other things on this. When you're creating a bulk email, make sure at the lower left these are checked here. So it says track open, track click, and track download, so that we can see that. If these are unchecked, we won't be able to track that, and we won't be able to report that to you in the email log. So that's, it's not so important. But we know later on this afternoon you're going to be like, did Tina open that? Did Laura open that? Did Vaco? This kind of thing. If these are checked, you'll be able to see for each of these individuals, did they open it? Did they click on the link? Did they download my video? This kind of thing. All right, now you can send yourself a test email, and I recommend you do that. Click on this button, look in your inbox, and just make sure the formatting on this bulk email looks perfect before you send it out, especially if it's an important email, right? Make sure there's a check mark here as well where it says include signatures, so that your email signature shows up at the lower left-hand corner below this content that you built out. Then send it, or you can schedule it now, which is kind of cool. This little clock button, you can schedule this bulk email to go out like tomorrow or Monday or any date and time in the future. I mean, this is pretty amazing. And people send us love letters at support about this now. They're like, oh, thank God you added that, Dan. I've been asking for that for like 2 years now. So bulk emailing, incredibly easy. Now, the last key concept about bulk emailing is that you do not need to go to these people's profile pages and make a note that I sent a bulk email to Tina Rasmussen. It's already done that for you. Okay, so whenever you send out a bulk email, it's already documenting that fact on their profile pages. Bulk texting is exactly the same logic, right? So we've highlighted those 4 people. Let's just show you how to send a bulk text to these people. You're going to click on the SMS button, gives you a text field. Now with bulk texting, we're going to ask you, just like with a campaign, what if they have more than one cell phone? Like they have a personal cell phone, a work cell phone, and then like a corporate desk phone or something. Where should we target this text message? If it's a group of candidates, you're probably going to definitely send it to their personal cell phone so that their boss doesn't see it. But if it's business development related, you probably want it to go to their work cell phones if they have work cell phones that have been given to them by their job. So it depends on, who the target audience is when you're determining which cell phone, if they have more than one, you want to aim at, right? So I would say for business development, it's almost always going to be the work cell phone. But remember, use a person first name merge tag, just like with an email. So it, personalizes it for these 4 people. And then type in your text message. You could drop in a template if you've built some kind of a text message template on your settings page, like an introduction text message kind of thing, and then send it or schedule it. to go out in the future, just like with an email. So, and again, you don't need to go and document that you send a bulk text to these people. It's already done that for you. So exactly the same process is just going to go out as a text instead of an email. So bulk emailing and bulk texting, I mean, really, it could not be any easier. It takes like just a couple of seconds to fire off a very quick bulk email to these people. And at the lower left, when you're done, hit the reset button and it takes you right back to square one in your database, or it should. Looks like my computer is kind of frozen here. Let me refresh the screen. Bear with me. When you hit the reset button, it should take you right back to square one in your people database. And so it has. Okay, good. All right, so that's bulk emailing and texting. Let's talk next about the sort of big brother of bulk emailing and bulk texting, which would be outreach campaigns. And that you access through the three dot button, choose outreach campaigns. And this is a big topic. You know, I spent about 20 minutes on this in the 102 training. So I'm going to give a very high level view of this. If you're not familiar with making outreach campaigns, then watch the 102. It's the first topic we cover in the 102 training, or watch my 10 or outreach best practices video, I think is what we called it. So at any rate, the idea here is when you go to the outreach campaigns tab, it shows you a list of all the outreach campaigns that you put together previously. We're in a demo account. That's why most of these are untitled. But the idea is to get an outreach campaign created, you'll use the add campaign button up here. We do have some prefab templates for some campaigns that we've written for you over at support. If you're, having writer's block or you're just not in the mood to make a campaign, you can use some of our templates. But frankly, it'll take you just as much time, to do that as if you just built one from scratch. So I would say just build one from scratch. So to do that, use the Start New button under From Scratch. It'll take you to this kind of work page where you build out your campaign stage by stage. The idea with outreach campaigns is you can have as many stages or communications going out in sequence as you want. Some campaigns are just like 2 stages, some have like 30 stages, especially like business development marketing campaigns where you're sending it to a group of prospect company contacts. It probably will be a more elaborate campaign with many more stages than if you're just sending a campaign to a group of candidates to say, read about this job and apply if you're interested. That's the kind of thing you do in like 2 or 3 stages, right? But if you're wooing a company like Apple and you're trying to get them to become a paid client of yours, that's probably going to take like 7 or 8 or 9 steps in that process. So we call those stages. And you build out those stages by using the add stage button up here. Curiously, we have that same button right there in case I think you miss it. It's there or there. You can click now. So click on add stage. And it takes you to this template box where you can build out each of the stages of your campaign. And each stage could be one of 5 different options. It could be an email going out to everybody, telling them something about your organization. It could be a text message going to their cell phones. It could be an outbound phone call that you make through Loxo to the recipient of the campaign at stage 3. It could be a LinkedIn action, like sending them an in-mail message or following them on LinkedIn or sending them a connection request as part of the sequence of stages in the campaign. And the 5th option is it could just be some kind of a task that you want to assign to yourself or someone else on your team to happen as part of the sequence of events in the campaign, right? So let's say it's stage 1, it's going to be an email. I click on the email icon, it gives me an email template exactly like the one I just showed you for a bulk email, right? Same thing. But make sure at the from line, just like I told you on bulk emailing, that you always choose the via Loxo option, right? So you don't get flagged as being a spammer if this campaign is being targeting like, 300 different business development contacts. Put in the subject line, again, don't be vague. Just say like, we can solve your healthcare sourcing problems or whatever. Be specific about what exactly the problem is that you're going to solve for these business development target companies. What do you do specifically that sets you apart from all the other recruiting organizations? Why should they open up this email and read it? That's what you want to get at in the subject lines. They go, oh, they have something about specifically sourcing healthcare candidates. That's exactly what we need. That's the response you want to elicit. Okay, now you could drop in template content, although for campaigns, it almost never makes sense because these are too generic, right? For a campaign, you're going to have very specific messaging. But if you built a template that makes sense, then drop it in. Now down below, just like we talked about earlier, you have person merge tags and also form link merge tags if you want to drop in a link to like a candidate intake form or a prospect company information form, or maybe you have something like that you want them to fill out. You can add attachments to this email if you want, especially with business development campaigns. We do see people adding like collateral for them to take a look at, some kind of an introductory, help guide for them to look at or something or other. Now, at the lower left is where you can set the delay time on this first stage. Now, I always recommend when you're building a campaign, best practice, build a 1 or 2 hour delay on this communication. You can always set the delay times, excuse me, in minutes, hours, days, or weeks. Weeks is how you can get those really gentle drip campaigns going out like once every 12 weeks, once every 3 months to passive candidates. But for this purpose, I'm going to say 2 hours so that if your finger slips and you drop like 100 people into the wrong campaign, which happens all the time, you have 2 hours to yank all those people out of the campaign so they don't get this email by mistake, right? That's the advantage or the reason why you want to have a 1 or 2 hour delay on communications in campaigns. All right, now make sure this is toggled on so your email signature shows up the lower left. Send yourself a test email. Definitely, if it's going to be going out to like 300 people, you want to make sure this thing looks perfect before you blast it out. And then hit the add button to add stage one. I'm going to put test in the subject line so I can add this and show you the way this will look. So I've built the first stage of my campaign. I click add and it adds it here back on this kind of workbook page. Here's stage one, a scheduled email with a 2 hour delay. The subject line is just the word test. Now, because I added the first stage of my campaign, it gives me a new button, add another stage. And this is how you keep going. So at stage two, maybe I want a text message going out. So I click the text icon, drop it a person merge tag, and then say something like, hey, Dan, I sent you an email yesterday about our services. I'd really like to talk to you about how we can help you find those healthcare candidates, or whatever you're trying to say to them, right? And then again, drop in a first name merge tag. I think I said that. And now the key concept with campaigns is this. The delay time now is talking about the interval between that first email and this text message going out, right? So the overarching sort of rule with campaigns in Loxo is if the recipient responds at any point, the campaign's over. The campaign shuts off immediately. So if they respond to the email, they're not going to get stage two because they responded. But if they did not respond to that email, we will see that very clearly. And now we're asking you, okay, how long should we wait before we blast them with the text message? The default setting will be 1 hour later. Now, this always struck me as pretty obnoxious, frankly. I'd probably do a day later, right? But set that wherever you think it makes sense in terms of like timely follow up, but not irritating the person, right? So I'd probably give them a day to open up the email before I blast them with the cell phone. But a lot of recruiters have lectured me on this. And they're like, no, Dan, I'd do it like 2 hours later. Fine, set that wherever you think it makes sense. Then send yourself a test email or text message rather. Look on your cell phone. Just make sure it looks perfect before, again, you blast it out to, 300 people and hit add to add stage two. And you're really on your way now. You have stage one, a scheduled email, stage two, a scheduled text message. And now, because you have more than one stage, you can use the gear icon to start moving stages up or down. You can edit the stages if you see a typo kind of thing. Duplicate the email for stage two, same email as stage one and stage two. Delete this stage, just start with a text message. Let's forget the email kind of thing. A lot of flexibility as you build out these stages. All right, let's talk about these last options, the outbound phone call option. If the recipient did not respond to the email and did not respond to the text message, then we will drop that recipient of this campaign into your call queue automatically so you don't forget to call the person and follow up. So for that reason, you want to type yourself a little note here to jog your memory so that when you see Dan Hintz in your call queue, you're not like, Dan Hintz, I didn't put this guy in my call queue. Someone has hacked my call queue. This used to happen before we thought of, putting in a note so they don't forget. So put something cryptic in there like, January business development blitz outbound call stage or something like that. So when you see it, you're like, oh, that's right. Now I know who Dan Hintz is, this kind of thing. And then we're going to make the next stage after this one optional. This is very confusing the way this is written, but basically what we're saying here is the next stage you add, stage 4 in our example here, is not going to wait for that prospect, that contact, to be removed from your call queue. It's kind of the honor system. We're going to drop them into your call queue, and then we're going to bank on the fact that you're going to actually call them. It's up to you to actually do the legwork on that, pick up the phone and call the person. We're going to assume you're going to do that. We don't want stage 4 to wait just because you forgot to remove that person from your call queue, right? If you wanted to act like that, you can, but most of our users are like, heck no, Dan, don't let the campaign get stalled just because I forgot to yank the person out of my call queue after I called them, right? And remember to set the interval between the text message and this outbound phone call, wherever you think that interval should be here, and then hit add. All right, the LinkedIn action. If you want to insert in a stage of your campaign a LinkedIn action, like sending the prospect contact person an in-mail through LinkedIn, you can do that. Now, the in-mail delivery function is still in beta, so we're still working out the kinks, although I've heard it's working beautifully. But if you want to use this, you got to click on the beta button to let us know that you understand that this thing is in beta and that we're going to be asking you for feedback on, like, did you find any bugs? Is it working? Are you happy with it? You know, these kind of like survey you'll get. Now, if you don't want to do the in-mail action, and if you do, you'll click the beta button, you'll put in the subject line and build the email out, and basically use a person first name merge tag, just like you're sending an email. It's just going to deliver through LinkedIn InMail. Build out the body of the email. And we have this option here. Do you want this step skipped in the campaign if you have run out of LinkedIn credits? Now, if you choose the in-mail delivery option here, it's going to spend a LinkedIn credit. So if you're out of credits and we have this queued up in your campaign, what do you want to happen? Do you want to just skip this and go to the next stage? That's the way it's set up right now. Now, if you do want it to wait until you buy some more LinkedIn credits, then just put it like that, and the campaign will basically pause until we see you have some LinkedIn Connect credits, and then it will attempt delivery again. Now, the other options, as I mentioned at the start, you could also remind yourself to send the connection LinkedIn connection request to the contact over at the prospect company, or you could remind yourself to simply view and follow that contact person on LinkedIn and sort of keep your eye on them going forward, kind of thing. So those are the three sort of LinkedIn actions that you can insert as a stage in your campaign. And again, just set the delay time between the outbound phone call and this LinkedIn action wherever you think it makes sense and hit add. I mentioned earlier, whenever you're building out stages of your campaign, if you want to drop in a task, you certainly can. And a lot of times with business development related campaigns, people will, like halfway through the stages in the campaign, have one that just says something like, time to huddle up with the marketing team and review the open rate, the click rate, and the reply rate for this campaign, and just see if we need to tweak the messaging on this marketing campaign to get a higher open rate, or something like that. That's how we frequently see people using tasks in relation to campaigns that are about business development tracking activity. So that's in a nutshell, at a high level, how you're going to build out all the stages of your campaign. And then when you're done, go to the gear icon, give a name to your campaign, share it with your team if you want, have it adhere to your delivery hours on your settings page. And then if you've got emails or text messages going out as part of your outreach campaign to those business development folks, let us know. If they have more than one email address, which one are we aiming at? The personal email or the work email? If it's business development, it's probably going to be the work email. And same thing with the work cell phone. If they have more than one, it's probably going to be the work cell phone for business development marketing purposes. And hit save. That's going to save the name of the campaign and these preferences here. Then the last thing you're going to do is you're going to go to the prospects tab and start dropping some of those contacts into this campaign to trigger it. So go to the prospects tab, use the add prospect button, and it's an auto populate feature. So remember, these people that you're targeting with this campaign, they do need to be in your database of people. So if I'm looking for Bob Jones, I type in Bob, it starts showing me all the Bobs in my people tab. And I don't see a Bob Jones here. So let's pretend I'm talking about Bob Smith. So I click the add button next to the name of the person you want to add, and it sources these people for this campaign. So I'm going to choose these three Bobs that I want to drop into this campaign. So I've added these three to this campaign. I click out of it, and I can see now they're going to receive that first stage communication in 2 hours. Now, the number one question we get about, outreach campaigns is, what if I drop the wrong Bob Smith in, right? I'm like, oops, this is the wrong Bob Smith. I need to remove this guy immediately. Just check next to the name, the left of their name, and then use the 3 dot button here. And this is where you can remove this person from the campaign, skip the current stage, move him to stage 2 if you need to, mark the campaign over and finish for this guy, or move him into another campaign. And you could take these actions in bulk. So if you drop like 100 Bobs in by mistake, and you're like, whoops, now what do I do? You select all, you can highlight everybody, and then remove everybody, put it on pause for everybody, skip the current stage, mark the campaign over, add them all into another campaign, and so on. So exactly the same kind of like recipient management tools that you want are at your fingertips here whenever you're dropping people into a campaign. Now, two other little notes about campaigns. At the upper left, when you're done, here is the master on-off switch. So when you're done creating the campaign and the thing is perfect, flip the switch to on to make it active. So this thing is actually running in the background. And as you drop people into the campaign going forward, they always drop in at stage one and the campaign creates in sequence. Let me pause there for questions. That all makes sense?
Yeah, so I would like to build a list of target people inside
Yeah.
companies. So,
Yeah.
so for instance, if I wanted to target HR directors
Yep.
in Germany in
Yep.
aerospace,
Yes. We're going there next.
I okay, cool. I'll shut up then.
Yep, you intuited the next topic we're going to go to. So the
Okay.
last thing about campaigns before we go to sourcing people for campaigns or basically putting them into lists
Yep.
is that on this dashboard view, you see all the campaigns that you've created. And the one that you just created is going to be the one up here at the top.
Yep.
This will be the master on-off switch. And to the right, you'll see the open rate, click rate, and reply rate for this campaign as a whole. So you'll be able to see which ones are really working. Now, one question we get all the time is, what do I do if I need to go in and fix a typo? Just use the edit button. Now,
Yep.
before you edit the campaign, flip it to off to put it on pause, then edit, save it, and then come back and flip it back on to make it active. You can share the campaign with your team, duplicate a smash hit campaign, and delete a campaign as well. That is campaigns. All right, now let's talk next about segmenting contacts. And your question is an excellent one. How do you keep these people straight? Well, on the people tab, remember you're dropping all of your business development contacts into this gigantic database of candidates and contacts. If you
Yep.
identify some folks like Tina and Vaco and say like 10 other people, and these are that particular group of contacts by industry or location or however you've sort of figured out these people belong together, you're going to use the add to list button right there. And when you do, that will open up your list of lists. And again, think of these as folders. So let's pretend the AE Boise, these are Boise business development contacts, right? If I choose that folder, it drops all those people that I've highlighted into that folder. And going forward, you always have this gray button up here with lists where it lists all your lists, and you can create a folder right here using the create list button. It's very much like the deal pipeline kind of thing. And you can always go back to this pipeline by clicking on AE Boise. It opens up that pipeline and shows me those 38 people. And now I've got everyone in that folder, in that list in front of me. I can do select all to highlight all these business development contacts by region or whatever it is, and now drop them into an outreach campaign right from here.
Sorry, Dan, could you go back to that? I've just brought up a list that I'm using. So can you show me that again, how to
Sure.
put them all in?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me go back here and refresh the screen. Okay, so we're back here. You go to a list that exists
Select
like
all, select.
AE Boise
Yep.
and click on it or put a check mark next to it, and it basically opens up that folder. And then
Yep.
you can see at the upper left how many people are in that folder. In this case, 38 people are in that Boise, Idaho list. And now
Yep.
use the select all button to grab everybody in that list.
Yep.
And the add to button is where you drop them into a campaign. But check this out. You can also add them to your call queue if you want, or you could add them into a bulk email or a bulk text message from here as well.
Okay.
So, if you have as long as you don't have like
Okay.
500 people, you could also just send out like a bulk email or a bulk text from here as well.
Okay.
That part all makes sense?
Yep. Got it.
Okay, cool. All right, now we're running out of time, but let me just cover a couple other things before we wrap up managing business development calls. Okay, this is the call queue up here at the top. So when you're on the people tab, it's basically a list of people that you have dropped in that you don't want to forget to call. And you can basically rearrange it in whatever order. So let's click there and take a look at it. So in this call queue, Gaz is the first person that I'm supposed to call today. Joe is the second person, Greg, and so on. I've been dropping people into this folder, if you will. Now, you can rearrange this. So if I know that Maxwell, in fact, is the first dude I need to call today, I can move him up to number one and put it in the order you want. Now, once you're looking at the call queue, you can dial out right from here. And if you don't get through, you can send an email right from here saying, hey, Maxwell, I just called you, but you didn't pick up. You can also document what happened. It was a wrong number. He wasn't available. I left a message. He is interested. He's not interested. I'm closing this. We're never going to call this guy again, or remove the current status that was in there, right? To the
Dan,
right.
sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Apologies.
No problem.
Steve, we don't have the calling direct, do we, from Loxo yet?
Oh, you guys haven't had that turned on in your account? Steve, if you can unmute your phone. Okay. Well, let me just say this on that. If you don't have
apologies, we've got a separate VoIP system. and it's a little bit complicated to
Oh, I see
switch
what
from
you're
that to
saying.
Loxo.
Right.
So we'd opt to look at it once we've got the system in
Got it.
place and moves it.
I think in that case, when you hover over this, it would display the number, and then you could manually dial out using the
Okay.
dial pad or something like that. It wouldn't auto dial for you guys in that case. But if you change your mind sometime and you want us to pull over your VoIP system into Loxo, we can do that. It's complicated, but it takes a couple weeks, but we've done it for several customers. So if that's a real sticky pain point for you guys, just let us know and say, look, we
Yeah.
need to pull in, and we can do that. All right.
Okay.
Now you can also see what jobs this person is related to. That's not going to matter for you guys, but you can see if there's a next call date scheduled, and you can schedule a next call date if you want to remember to call this business development person like on the 1st of March, February, or whatever, and you can dial out right from here. Now, let me just remind you one other thing about the call queue is that you can add someone to a call queue when you're on their profile page. That's usually people are like, how do I get them in there? When you're on the profile page for that business development person, use the add to button and drop them into the call queue or call list. We're calling it here this way. Now, when you add someone, they're going to drop in at the bottom of that call queue. So if you don't see them at the top and you're like, it's not working, just look at the very bottom of the list, and then you can move them up if you need to. Okay, now the last thing I want to cover before we let you guys go, and we're almost out of time, is tasks. And I think you guys know this, but on the task tab, first of all, when you're on tasks, you have a choice of how you view your tasks. You can view them in a list, you can view them on your calendar, and again, we can push this out to your calendar, or you can view your
Sorry.
tasks. Go ahead.
I really apologize. So
It's okay.
when I go to my and I'm the least good user at this at the moment, but when I go to my dashboard,
Yes.
I assumed that my dashboard would show me my emails and my calendar, tasks, all of that kind of stuff. Is that not correct?
All right. When you say your dashboard, you mean like your login page, or are you talking about this
my
view
Loxo
here?
page, yeah.
Yeah, it should recognize whoever's logged in. You can see at the lower left when you log in, we can see your initials should display here. But are you saying that it's not showing your individual tasks? It's showing you like your group tasks for your whole team, or?
It's not showing anything. I mean, I would assume that my emails would also show in there if I'd synced my emails. Is that not correct?
It's gonna,
and
if you
my
synced it
calendar.
on your emails are not going to show on your calendar. No, the emails will sync up with whoever you emailed. So for example, if you emailed Ian here, that's going to show up under activity here, and your full email back and forth between him and Ian is going to show up in the activity stream.
Okay, got that. But if I've got tasks in my things in my calendar, see, I can't see the calendar on my desktop. And
I don't think the calendars, this calendar view is not going to display in your dashboard. I don't think it's only going to display under tasks. So what I usually do is I condition people when they log into Loxo, first thing is click on the task tab and just take care of any tasks that are open that you need to do today. And if you've synced up your work calendar with Loxo, as you create tasks here using the add task button, it'll place them on this calendar, but it'll also place it on your work calendar at the same time.
Okay, not vice versa.
No, we can't pull in from your calendar, but we can push. It's a push but not pull when it comes to the calendar sync. But a lot of people use this Kanban view. It's another just like job pipeline or deals pipeline. I think this is going to eventually be the default view just because it's so popular. But right now it's the list view, the old school list view. That's the default view on tasks. So what I'm saying here is that tasks is a really crucial tool to leverage when you're managing business development tasks that you create, like on deals or whatever. When you use the add task button, it's going to put it right in your task pipeline. Okay, now I know we're out of time. I would have probably spent a lot more time on some of these features, but let me just say that my email address is dan@loxo.co. And if you want to schedule another session with me, just email me. I'm always happy to carve out an hour for you guys. And Mackenzie will also follow up with you just to see where you're at, see if you need some help configuring anything, if your phones are not synced up or anything like that. Let her know. She's going to make sure everything goes smoothly for you. But I'm the training guy, so feel free anytime it's like just a basic, like we need to learn how to make a campaign or something. Either watch the 102 training. I got a big training video playlist, or reach out to me and I'm happy to do a session with you guys.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks for carving out an hour. I really appreciate your time. All right. Talk to you guys soon. Yep.
Thank you.
Take care.